The story of Mick and Mairead Philpot is remembered not only because of the crime itself, but because of how they behaved afterward. Mick Philpot was already well known long before the fire that killed 6 of his children. He had appeared in newspapers, on television, and in documentary programs. He became a controversial figure in the UK after openly living with 2 women, his wife, Mairead Philpot, and his mistress, Lisa Willis, while raising a large number of children in a council house funded through public benefits. To some, he represented everything wrong with the welfare system. To others, he was simply exploiting what was available to him.
At this present moment, I am on cloud 9. I'm buzzing. Just had child number 17. I've soon come to child number 18. There's going to be a lot of people out there that's going to say, oh look, the scum, the scrounger, the shameless Mick has done it again. Well, I'll tell you what, f*** all of you.
From a young age, his behavior was marked by violence and control, particularly toward women. At 21 years old, he attempted to murder his girlfriend, Kim Hill. Their relationship had begun when she was just 15. During their time together, he shot her in the groin with a crossbow because he believed her dress was too short. He later shattered her kneecap with a hammer out of jealousy. In July 1978, when she tried to leave him for good, Mick stabbed her more than a dozen times while she lay in bed. When her mother rushed in to help, he stabbed her as well. Kim Hill survived despite collapsed lungs and severe internal injuries to her bladder, kidney, and liver. Mick was convicted of attempted murder and grievous bodily harm and sentenced to 7 years in prison. He served just over 3. From that point forward, the pattern in his relationships remained disturbingly consistent. He married Pamela Lomax in 1986 and had 3 children with her. She later said she prayed he would simply move on to someone else. Eventually, he did. The next girl was 14-year-old Heather Keogh, who moved in with him on her 16th birthday. She had 2 sons with him. According to her, Mick beat her because the children were not girls. He wanted daughters, and he even encouraged his older sons to behave aggressively toward her. In 2000, he met Mairead Duffy. She was 19, already a mother, and had recently left a troubled relationship. She moved into his home quickly, and they married in 2003. Around the same time, 16-year-old Lisa Willis, an orphan and single mother, also moved in. She became Mick's mistress and even served as Mairead's bridesmaid. By 2011, tensions inside the home were escalating. Mairead had become pregnant by another man and was pressured by Mick to end the pregnancy. Lisa Willis eventually left the household, taking her children with her and filing for custody of the children she shared with Mick. A court hearing was scheduled for the morning of May 11, 2012. The same morning, everything changed.
What's your name,
Oh, it's my kids, Mrs. Philpot.
Mrs. Philpot. How many kids are in the house, Mrs. Philpot? Where are they?
There's 6 of them.
Sorry?
There's 6 of them.
At approximately 4 a.m. on May 11, 2012, a fire broke out at the Philpot home in Derby. Mick and Mairead claimed they had been asleep downstairs. The children, Jade, John, Jack, Jesse, Jaden, and Duane, were asleep upstairs. By the time emergency crews arrived, thick smoke had filled the house. 5 of the children died at the scene from smoke inhalation. Duane survived long enough to be transported to the hospital, but died 2 days later. The community responded immediately. Fundraisers were organized. Church services and public vigils were held. More than £11,000 was raised to help cover funeral costs and support the grieving parents. Then came the televised interview.
First of all, I want to thank my 3 oldest children because they helping us to cope with what's going on. And then there's a young lad called Daniel Stevenson who tried to get in the house the same as myself, Joe across the road, and the Butler brothers. And of course there's the poor firemen, the police, the ambulances, the doctors, the nurses, literally everybody who tried to help save our children. They couldn't. Let's excuse me a minute. We've decided that through our son Dwayne, and unfortunately the last one to pass away, that we're going to donate his organs to save another child, which is what we want, because if you can save another child, that makes us happy. It takes a bit of the pain away. But there's one thing I would request is please leave my family alone. If you've got any questions or anything at all, please don't come through me or my family. Please go to the police.
Just days after losing 6 children, Mick and Mairead Philpot stood in front of cameras, crying and wiping their faces. At the time, some viewers felt uneasy watching it. Something didn't sit right. But many dismissed that feeling as discomfort in the face of tragedy. Behind the scenes, investigators were already treating the fire as suspicious. Petrol had been poured through the home's letterbox. Police also discovered that Mick was due in court that very morning for the custody hearing involving Lisa Willis. Witnesses described his behavior in the days after the fire as unusual. He appeared energized by the media attention. Police installed covert recording devices in the hotel room where Mick, Mairead, and their friend Paul Mosley were staying. The recordings revealed conversations that were not filled with grief, but with frustration that their story wasn't being believed. Prosecutors later argued that Mick intended to set a controlled fire, rescue the children dramatically, blame Lisa Willis, and use the resulting sympathy to strengthen his custody case and public image. He did not intend for the children to die, they said, but he created the situation that led directly to their deaths. The trial began in February 2013 and lasted 8 weeks. Mick Philpot, Mairead Philpot, and Paul Mosley were found guilty of manslaughter. Mick received a life sentence with a minimum term of 15 years. Mairead and Mosley were each sentenced to 17 years. Mairead was released on license in 2020. Paul Mosley was later released, but was found dead in Portsmouth in October 2025. It was a case about control, manipulation, and a tragedy staged for sympathy. But sometimes the unsettling moment isn't planned. Over months. It flashes across your screen for less than a second, and still won't leave your mind. Quick interruption. If you're enjoying this video, why not hit that subscribe button? We're on a mission to hit 500,000 subscribers, and when we do, 3 lucky fans will win a limited edition CreepyVids hoodie or shirt. Right now, 61.4% of you watching haven't subscribed yet. It's completely free, and your support helps us make even more awesome videos. So, don't miss out. Subscribe now, and let's get back to the video. UFC Fight Night is part of the Ultimate Fighting Championship's long-running calendar of events. Smaller than the blockbuster pay-per-view cards, but often just as competitive. These events are held regularly across different cities around the world, showcasing rising contenders, ranked fighters, and sometimes pivotal matchups that quietly reshape divisions. Unlike championship cards headlined by global superstars, fight nights are typically about momentum, about fighters climbing the ladder. But on October 18, 2025, at an event held in Vancouver, Canada, something happened that had nothing to do with rankings, records, or the outcome of a fight. The night had unfolded normally. The arena was packed. The crowd was loud. The broadcast was live to millions of viewers across the world. The atmosphere carried that familiar UFC intensity. The lights, the music, the tunnel walk energy that builds just before a main event. The headlining fight that evening was a middleweight clash between Brendan Allen of South Carolina and Dutch fighter Reinier de Ridder. As the broadcast cameras followed Allen during his walkout toward the octagon, viewers watched the standard sequence, the slow march down the arena tunnel, cornermen close behind, fans leaning over barricades trying to capture a moment on their phones. Then something unusual happened. As Allen passed by the crowd, A fan wearing a distinctive red and black luchador-style mask leaned over the barricade and held his phone directly into the path of the camera. At first glance, it looked like typical fan behavior. Someone trying to get attention during a live broadcast. But when viewers paused the footage, they noticed something on the screen of that phone. Displayed briefly, for less than a second, was an image that appeared to show an unconscious person lying motionless, their face partially obscured. The image was dark, unsettling, and ambiguous enough to spark immediate concern. The camera cut away almost instantly. There was no commentary about it, no acknowledgement from the broadcast team. The fight proceeded as scheduled, but the moment didn't disappear. Within hours, clips of the walkout began circulating online. Viewers slowed the footage down, zoomed in, and shared screenshots across social media platforms. Questions began to flood comment sections. Who was the masked fan? What was that image? Was it real? Was it staged? Speculation spread quickly. Some claimed the photo resembled a missing person. Others suggested it could be an attempt at a disturbing prank designed to hijack a global broadcast. A more extreme rumor began circulating, that the image showed a hostage situation, and that authorities were investigating the individual seen in the arena. Claims that the FBI had become involved also surfaced online. However, there has been no official confirmation from law enforcement agencies or the UFC supporting those rumors. As of now, no verified explanation has been provided about the masked fan, the image on the phone, or whether it was authentic, manipulated, or entirely unrelated to any real-world incident. What remains is a brief, unsettling flash during a live international sporting event. A moment that lasted less than a second, but was replayed thousands of times online. And in an era where attention can be manufactured instantly, the biggest question may not be what the image showed, but why someone would choose that exact moment in front of millions of viewers to display it. What do you think it was? A prank designed for viral attention, or something more serious? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And while you're letting me know, we head into the case of Ganon Stauch, a case that went on for weeks, and the truth got only darker the longer it went on. Ganon Stauch was born on September 29, 2008. He lived in Colorado Springs with his father, Al Stauch, his stepmother, Letitia Stauch, and his younger sister. He was 11 years old when he disappeared. On January 27, 2020, Letitia called the El Paso County Sheriff's Office and reported that Ganon had left the house between 3:15 and 4 p.m. to walk to a friend's home and never returned. At first, it appeared to be a possible runaway case, but within days, investigators uncovered evidence suggesting Ganon had never walked away at all. The case was reclassified as a missing and endangered child. The FBI joined the search effort. Al Stauch and Ganon's biological mother gave emotional interviews, pleading for help and thanking the community. They appeared devastated. Letitia also spoke publicly, but her tone stood out. She appeared defensive, frustrated. At times, she referred to Ganon in the past tense while the search was still ongoing.
You are?
I am Tisha Stauch, which is Ganon's stepmother.
You've been a part of the investigation since the very first time. You were the last person to see him. Is that right?
Correct.
What did you see when you last saw him?
Well, I'm not allowed to talk about anything with the case. I would more so be willing to talk about how the community needs to have faith and continue to work together and not make these false accusations, like the things that have been said that I've disappeared from the community. I haven't been there to help, but there's lots of reasons behind that.
And why did you ask for an attorney at the time?
Well, I asked for an attorney at the time because there was one individual, there was two really good detectives, and so I'm not, going to talk bad about detectives, but the tactics they started to get when I would answer questions, they try to, they're detectives, they're supposed to twist. The one main goal is to find Ganon. But during that time, some of those things made me feel uncomfortable the way they were saying things. So I immediately stopped and felt like an attorney would help me with some of the vocabulary and things like that I needed help with and understanding some of the things that they were asking. I took care of Ganon for the last 2 years in our home because his mother didn't want to do it. And I would never, ever hurt this child. And I know there's some questions out there about, okay, so tell me what happens. That's up to the investigations when they end up letting you guys know, but I've cooperated with them. I am going to be so ecstatic when I'm able to say to people that I hope they have a really sincere apology for all these theories that have came out online, for all the things they said that I have done or people have done. And I just want everyone to know that we're going to find Ganon, and I love him so much. I've helped taking care of him for so long.
Can you talk to me a little bit about him? I don't know him.
Ganon is so kind, and he loves to play video games. That's one of his favorite things. He loves Sonic and Mario, and you know, he's always helpful, and he was always so helpful with the dogs around the house, and we have 2 little cute dogs, and he was always like a person I could say, Ganon, can you go do this? And he would do it right away. You know, sometimes with kids we have to remind them and things like that, and that's okay, but he was so sweet and able to help anyone. He could notice when you're sick and say, are you okay? And such a kind heart.
In one interview, she pointed to her daughter as proof that her version of events was true. She stepped away from the camera briefly, but her microphone remained on. Viewers could hear her quietly instructing her daughter on what to say.
I need Hartley, because they want you to verify was Ganon at home after the hike. Because you didn't go to the hike, but you came home from work.
Do you want me to just say yes?
No, just answer the question. Yes, you came home from work, and you can verify Ganon was at home. Yeah. I told her she didn't have to be too in-depth, because she is still, you know, a child, but I want to make sure that someone knows that there's another person to verify that Ganon.
Sure.
Meanwhile, surveillance footage from a neighbor's home showed Letitia leaving the house around 10:15 a.m. with Ganon inside her truck and returning around 2:19 p.m. without him. That footage became one of the most critical pieces of evidence in the case. As the investigation continued, her story changed repeatedly. She claimed Ganon had been abducted. Then she alleged she had been assaulted and that someone else took him. Later, she claimed Ganon injured himself, and she panicked. In reality, Ganon had been killed inside the home. Investigators determined he was stabbed multiple times, struck in the head, and shot. Afterward, Letitia cleaned the bedroom, placed his body into a suitcase, and transported it out of Colorado. She ultimately drove over 1,300 miles to Florida in a rented van. On March 17, 2020, a maintenance worker discovered the suitcase under the Escambia Bay Bridge in Pensacola, Florida. The remains were identified as Ganon's. Letitia Stauch was arrested in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and extradited back to Colorado. She was charged with first-degree murder of a child by a person in a position of trust. During the trial process, she claimed she suffered from dissociative identity disorder and argued that an alternate personality committed the crime. Court-appointed psychiatric experts found her competent to stand trial. Her insanity defense was rejected. And on May 8, 2023, Letitia Stauch was sentenced to life in prison without parole, plus an additional 156 years. Now that case was about a child, a family, and deception dressed up as concern. The next story, however, is different, but it carries the same theme, an image crafted for the public, and a reality that didn't match it. From 2011 to 2016, Showtime aired a reality series that felt almost engineered to provoke attention. Gigolos followed 5 male escorts working in Las Vegas, presenting a version of their lives that was polished, confident, and unapologetically indulgent. The show didn't frame these men as cautionary tales. Instead, it packaged their world as aspirational. Luxury hotel suites, neon-lit nights, easy money, and total freedom. Among the cast was a man who didn't quite fit the loud, flamboyant stereotype. When Armand joined in Season 3, he was introduced as something different. While others leaned into excess, Ash was portrayed as reflective and controlled, the so-called Zen master of the group. On screen, he spoke about balance, spirituality, self-awareness, and energy. He didn't market chaos. He marketed control. 4 years after Gigolos quietly aired its final episode, that carefully crafted image shattered. In July 2020, Ash Armand, born Akshaya Kubiak, was arrested in Las Vegas for the killing of 29-year-old Herline Dulai. The crime was violent. Later, he would plead guilty to voluntary manslaughter and mayhem. He was sentenced to between 8 and 20 years in prison. What unsettles many people about this case isn't just the crime itself. It's the stark contrast between the man viewers believed they knew and the reality that followed. Ash's life before television was described as unconventional. He was raised between Maine and Japan, moving between cultures and philosophies from an early age. In a letter submitted to the court, his mother wrote that he had grown up immersed in healing traditions from both Eastern and Western practices. Former acquaintances described his upbringing as free-spirited, sometimes lacking clear boundaries. On social media, he referred to himself as a sex and fitness educator, a healer, and a father. His son was reportedly 17 years old at the time of his arrest. By 2012, Ash was working for the Las Vegas escort agency Cowboys for Angels. That same year, the agency's founder helped secure him a spot on Gigolos. For 4 years, cameras followed him, until the show ended in 2016. Herline Dulai, whose name is often spelled Herline Dulai in court records, was not a public figure. She was born in Northern California and later moved to Las Vegas. According to her obituary, she worked closely with children, led youth activities, and was remembered by loved ones as warm and compassionate. At the time of her death, she was working as a personal trainer. She and Ash were friends. Reports conflict on whether she had ever been his client, but what is known is that they had started some form of business venture together, though the exact nature of that project remains unclear. On the night of July 15, 2020, Herline went to Ash's home. According to court accounts, the two consumed psychedelic mushrooms. They lit candles. They prayed. They watched the movie Avatar. What began as a spiritual, intimate evening would end in violence. By the following morning, everything had changed. At approximately 10 a.m., Ash called 911.
One emergency. Do you need police, fire, or medical?
I need police.
Okay, all right. Can you tell me what's going on there?
Okay, forgot what to say. There was a struggle. I basically, she seems unconscious. She's not conscious or breathing, so I need somebody here ASAP. I think realistically, I don't think she's really here anymore. We took mushrooms together last night. We said our prayers together. We put on Avatar together, and I don't know if you've ever done mushrooms before, but I started I was no longer in this reality anymore. I was in different realities, so I lost my mind.
When paramedics arrived, they found him attempting CPR. But almost immediately, something about the scene didn't align with his explanation. There were no clear signs of a medical emergency. Instead, there was visible trauma. Blood was spattered around the room. The autopsy would later reveal blunt force trauma, with strangulation listed as a contributing factor. Herline's death was ruled a homicide. Ash was arrested and charged with murder. He claimed that after taking mushrooms, Herline attacked him first. He said he blacked out, losing control. During sentencing, he stated that he had never hit a woman in his life and never intended to harm her. Herline's family struggled with that explanation. During court proceedings, they asked a haunting question. What kind of attack could possibly justify the level of violence inflicted on her body? In September 2021, Ash pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and mayhem. Reports indicated he entered the plea to spare the family a prolonged trial. He was sentenced to 8 to 20 years in prison and has been incarcerated in Nevada since 2021. Years later, his name surfaced again. In May 2025, court testimony in the federal trial involving Sean Diddy Combs referenced Ash Armand as one of the escorts allegedly involved in so-called freak-off events. His alleged involvement was mentioned during the first week of testimony in Manhattan federal court. The man, once portrayed as calm and spiritually grounded, had become linked to violence, prison, and controversy. A collapse of image that many viewers never saw coming. And if that case was disturbing because of the contrast between image and reality, the next one is disturbing because the truth was above everyone's heads the entire time. Tia Sharp was born on June 30th, 2000. By the time she was 12 years old, she was splitting her time between her mother's home and her grandmother Christine Bicknell's house in New Addington, South London. Christine lived there with her partner, Stuart Hazel, a man who had been around the family for years and who had known Tia since she was a baby. He wasn't seen as an outsider. He was treated as part of the household. But on August 3rd, 2012, everything changed. Tia was reported missing. According to Stuart Hazel, she had left the house earlier that day to take a bus roughly 5 miles to the Whitgift Center in Croydon to buy new shoes. It sounded ordinary, simple, a short shopping trip that should have taken no time at all. But as the hours passed and Tia didn't return, concern began to grow. Family members started calling friends. Neighbors were asked if they had seen her. Bus routes were checked. Local shops were contacted. Eventually, police were notified. What started as a missing child report quickly became national news. Over the next several days, reported sightings flooded in, more than 50 in total. But one by one, they led nowhere. Each promising lead ended in disappointment. More than 80 police officers were assigned to the investigation. Search teams combed through parks and wooded areas. Officers canvassed neighborhoods. Reporters gathered outside Christine Bicknell's home as public concern intensified. Inside that house, Stuart Hazel and Christine Bicknell remained largely out of sight. Then, 6 days after Tia was last seen, Stuart Hazel agreed to speak publicly.
She's a happy-go-lucky golden angel. You know what I mean? She's perfect. There's no arguments, no nothing, nothing we can think of, absolutely nothing. I was hoovering, then she walked past me from the front room to go out, and she walked out the front door, that is all I know. And she left her phone on charge because I told her to sit there and leave her phone on charge. I didn't mean leave it on charge because what Tia doing, she plays on the BB thing, but then she uses it as it's charging, so there's no charge going through to it. So when I said to her, just leave your phone on charge, it means leave her phone on charge, not use it, let it charge up a bit, then you can actually take it with you or whatever, because she's been responsible to go to Croydon before. She's been responsible to go on trains and buses and trams and everything before on her own.
So when she walked past you and out to the door, did she say anything?
She said, goodbye. Well, I said, well, make sure you're back at 6. She went, yeah. And that was it, and then the door closed and she walks out. We're stuck inside here, do you know what I mean? We've got all the papers outside, all putting accusations down, and they asked me stupid questions yesterday, like, oh, did you do anything? I said, well, no, I didn't. Excuse my language, but no, I didn't. I'd never think of that. I'd loved her to bits. She's like my own daughter, for God's sake. We had that sort of relationship. It was that sort of thing. It was just, you know, she wanted it, she got it. She's got a loving home. She's never gone without anything, so I can't work it out. What the hell's going on? We're all out there. They want to report the truth.
So do you feel under pressure? Do you feel that perhaps the people are looking at you?
Well, if they believe what they read in the papers, they can do whatever they like. Because I know deep down in my heart that Tia walked out of my house. She walked out there, and I know damn well because she was seen walking down the pathway. I know she made that track down to that way. What happened after that is I don't know.
On August 9th, 2012, Hazel sat down for an interview with ITV News. He spoke about Tia's disappearance, urging her to come home, presenting himself as worried and cooperative. At the time, nothing about the interview immediately confirmed guilt. But later, once the truth was known, viewers would revisit that footage with a completely different perspective. Because the very next day, everything changed. On August 10th, police returned to the house for yet another search. The fourth time they had been inside the property. This time, they went back into the loft space, Inside a black bag wrapped in bedding, hidden above the rooms where family members and officers had been moving around for days, they found a body. It was Tia. For nearly a week, while search efforts spread across London and the country watched in fear and hope, her body had been concealed inside the very house at the center of the investigation. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. Police immediately launched a full murder investigation and began searching for Stuart Hazel, who had disappeared shortly after the body was found. Later that evening, following a tip from a member of the public, he was located at Cannon Hill Common in Mitcham and arrested on suspicion of murder. Christine Bicknell was also arrested, along with neighbor Paul Meehan, on suspicion of assisting an offender. Bicknell was later cleared of any involvement. Meehan was convicted of misleading police, but was not involved in Tia's death. As investigators processed the home, they uncovered something even more disturbing. Memory cards had been hidden inside the property, one concealed within a doorframe. When forensic specialists recovered deleted files, they discovered images and videos that revealed Stuart Hazel had been secretly recording Tia long before she disappeared. Some footage showed her unaware, applying lotion, sleeping, images that suggested surveillance and obsession. Other material appeared to have been recorded after her death. Forensic psychologists later suggested that Hazel may have murdered Tia after she rejected him. The official cause of death could not be conclusively determined due to decomposition, but investigators believe she had been smothered. On August 12, 2012, Stuart Hazel was formally charged with murder. He initially pleaded not guilty and was held at Belmarsh Prison for his own protection. His trial began on May 7, 2013. Jurors were shown the ITV interview footage, the same interview given just one day before Tia's body was discovered. With the evidence now laid out in court, the performance appeared very different. 5 days into the trial, Hazel changed his plea to guilty. On May 14, 2013, he was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 38 years. He will be 75 years old before he is even eligible to apply for parole. And for many people who followed the case, the most haunting detail remains the simplest one, that for days, while the country searched for Tia Sharp, she had never left that house at all. And with that, we head into a story that carries the same sense of dread. Except this time, it happened on a set, in front of cameras, and still somehow, someone disappeared. The series was called Clear Man, an unfinished Pakistani adaptation of the Swedish survival format Expedition Robinson, better known internationally as Survivor. It was produced by Working Hands Productions and sponsored by Unilever Pakistan, created specifically to promote the company's Clear Anti-Dandruff shampoo. What was intended to be a branded reality competition turned into something far darker. In August 2009, during filming for episode 10, something went wrong. The show was abruptly postponed, and then quietly canceled. Almost no footage has ever resurfaced. The host was Amina Sheikh, a fashion model and brand ambassador for Clear. Although produced for Pakistani television, the show was filmed almost entirely in Bangkok, Thailand. 9 episodes had already been recorded. The winner would have been crowned the Clear Man. But that title was never awarded. One of the contestants was Muhammad Saad Khan, a 32-year-old employee of the Royal Bank of Scotland. He was married and had 4 children. Friends described him as hardworking, someone who had risen from modest beginnings to build a stable life for his family. He had some prior modeling experience and entered the show as a personal challenge. Friends later recalled how excited he was to travel to Thailand for filming. Fellow contestants described him as charismatic and well-liked, even a favorite to win. Ironically, he was eliminated in episode 4. The challenge involved throwing a ball into a basket 10 feet above the ground while standing on a melting ice block. He failed to complete it. After elimination, Contestants were required to move into a separate hotel while production continued. But Khan's journey with Clear Man didn't end there. Possibly because of his popularity, he was invited back for a wildcard return challenge in episode 10. Friends later said he was thrilled for the second chance. On August 19, 2009, just hours before the challenge, he reportedly expressed excitement about reappearing on the show. The wildcard challenge took place at Chatuchak Park in Bangkok. The format was physically demanding. Contestants first sprinted through a staged fiery path. Then they entered a pond and swam a designated distance. Finally, they were required to climb a rope to finish. Throughout the entire challenge, each participant carried a 7-kilogram sandbag strapped to their back. Khan completed the first stage without difficulty. Friends and fellow contestants later described him as a strong swimmer. There was no immediate concern when he entered the water. But midway through the swim, something went wrong. Witnesses said Khan suddenly rolled onto his back and began shouting for help. Accounts differ about what caused the crisis. Some claimed he suffered a muscle cramp. Others, including reports later cited by the Times of India, suggested he may have torn a hamstring. Whatever the trigger, he was visibly struggling. Then he disappeared beneath the surface. Part of the sandbag was reportedly tied to his ankles as part of the challenge design. As he panicked, the added weight dragged him downward. He was not wearing a life jacket or any flotation device. According to later reports, buoyancy equipment was not mandatory for the challenge. Other contestants jumped into the pond, attempting to locate him in the murky water. Visibility was poor. Time passed. Approximately 10 minutes after he vanished, his backpack floated back to the surface, empty. Only then did lifeguards reportedly arrive. By the time Khan was pulled from the pond, he was unresponsive. In the days that followed, allegations began to circulate. Bloggers claimed Unilever and associated media agencies were attempting to suppress coverage. Others alleged that Pakistani media outlets were hesitant to report on the incident. It wasn't until late August, around the time Khan's body was returned to Karachi, that national and international coverage intensified. A police investigation was launched in Thailand. Across multiple reports, a consistent concern emerged. Safety procedures may have been inadequate. Sources alleged that no proper depth testing had been conducted in the pond before filming. Contestants later claimed they had been told the water was shallow. When Khan began struggling, there were reportedly no lifeguards stationed immediately beside the course. Professional medical assistance did not arrive for several critical minutes. Muhammad Saad Khan's family never gave public interviews. They demanded that Unilever accept full legal responsibility, but no public lawsuit outcome or settlement details have ever been disclosed. No footage from Clearman has surfaced publicly. The recording of the challenge and the drowning has never been released. Reports indicate that Khan's family and friends attempted to obtain the tape, but whether they ever did remains unclear. What was meant to crown a clear man instead ended in silence, and a show that vanished almost as quickly as it appeared. Now that was all for today, folks. If you enjoyed these horrifying clips, click to see more on the video on screen.